don't know, for me, and people probably don't want to hear, I still think 3 full years of struggle here before.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's anything wrong. Like people say, oh, you can't ask that question. That's an impossible one to ask Trevor and Jim. Like, really? Like they can't say in 3 years we expect to be in it, in the mix, like in the legit mix to be a contender in 3 years, or in the playoffs are realistic in 3 years. Like that's 7 years of these guys. That's 7 years that they've been in charge of the organization. I think that like if you say 3 to 5 years we're going to be a contender in 3 to 5 years. I think in Ottawa, Melnick or one of them said 3 to 5 years. Like I think that's like 5 years. That's like a decade of Linden and Benning. Like if they don't have a contending team in 5 years, they should quit. They've got to like leave. Like come on, a decade and they can't produce. Like I don't think that there's anything wrong, and I think the fans would rally around it if they said like, look, we have to be patient, but in 3 to 5 years we're going to have a contender. Is that not so hard to say? Is that bananas?
Well, yeah, I think because Jim's been burned by the fact that his first comments when he took the job were he could turn it around quickly.
Yeah.
And obviously that hasn't been the case.
But that's 10 years of Jim. Like 10 years of Jim. He better have a team. If it were 5 years from now.
And I think the issue is sort of heightened by the fact the team that he came from, the team he left behind, won the Cup in 2011, got back to the final in 2013, and here in 2018 has a legitimate shot of winning the Stanley Cup again. Yeah,
and they've done a great job drafting. They've done a great job, like a really, really good job, and they were criticized. And there was other guys that they could have had when they had the 3 picks in a row. Obviously, what was that? The Barzell that they missed right after it. But DeBrusk's been great. He's helped that second line. And obviously, we talked about Pasternak earlier and what that has meant to them. And Pasternak was right there for Jim. He could have stolen him right away from the Boston Bruins. And
I always think it kind of gets lost in everything else with the roster that they've got. But they felt that they had the assets necessary to make the Rick Nash trade as well. And good teams are able to stockpile assets. So when the opportunity presents itself, they can pounce. Like I think of the LA Kings in their glory years. They traded away Braden Shen, they traded away Wayne Simmons to get guys like Carter and Richards that helped them win the Stanley Cup. But they had drafted so well that they had those types of players that they felt they could peddle to get guys in that could help them win the Cup. Well, and in the expansion draft, they protected Kevin Miller, who's kind of their Tanev shutdown defensive guy. Instead of Colin Miller, who in his rookie season had like 16 points in half a season. Like, can you imagine if a defenseman showed up here and he had 16 points in half a season? Like, we would be on the back page of the Province. I'd be writing multiple features about him. We'd be talking about him like every other day on the radio. Like, holy fuck, look at this guy. He's the coverage Hutton got as a 25-point guy, and he was good in his rookie seaon. But we're talking about a guy that was projected at more points than that if he had played the full year for the Bruins. And Colin Miller has developed into a 40-plus point guy in Vegas, and Hutton has gone away, has totally disappeared, and that like I could talk about Hutton every day. Like anytime you bring up Ben Hutton, I feel like I could talk about it forever because he did show a lot of promise there. His skating was good. It was good. That's a major letdown in terms of development for the organization. Like speed and skill, important. Draft and develop, important. Like these are two of their big slogans and catchphrases that the Canucks use all the time. They had a player in Ben Hutton. They don't have a player anymore. I get a kick out of the fact, and I've seen this an awful lot, that people look at Vegas and the success that the Knights are having and saying, an example of a team that is giving guys that chance that they just didn't get elsewhere. Right. Yeah. You don't like that? Well, no. That is true. There is. There's a huge element of truth to that. Why would that bug you? Well, because, let me finish. Okay. Because they have to be the right guys to get the opportunities. The Canucks gave Jason Megna and Michael Chaput all the opportunity in the world a year ago. They're not in the second round of the playoffs now. That's true. So it's not enough just to say, give your guys on the farm an opportunity. They've got to be the right guys. Certainly. The Vegas story is remarkable on so many levels. And, Erik Haula was he wasn't much in Minnesota.
No.
I think I looked at it when the Canucks were in Vegas earlier this year. Erik Haula had scored 2 power play goals in his life in 4 seasons in Minnesota.
Yeah.
He led the Vegas Knights in power play goals this year. Now, clearly there was more for him to give, and he wasn't getting that opportunity in Minnesota. But to sit here and say that people saw, this guy becoming the Vegas Golden Knights power play secret weapon, they're lying. They're flat out lying. But he was a guy that has benefited. I mean, they all those top guys. Carlson. I mean, it's ridiculous what he's done in 1 year with Vegas.
Right.
But are you telling me that if Michael Chaput and Jason Magna were on the top line of the Vegas Knights, that they would be in the same situation they are right now?
No, of course not. But and the Canucks have tried these guys. They gambled. I remember Burmistrov being pitched as a low risk, high reward guy. Rodin being pitched as a low risk, high reward guy. Now, neither of them really got those opportunities that you're talking about. Certainly, Rodin got just chased right out of van and never remember Green saying, I don't need a look-see, or I don't need to look at a player. And then the rest of the season, he kept saying, I want to have a look at this guy. I want to see what he can do. Their treatment of Rodin was abysmal. That was just, there's all kinds of stories that aren't even known. But that wasn't fair to Rodin. Burmistrov, they flopped on. They missed on those guys. Magnus Chaput, they missed. Thinking Del Zotto could be this type of guy. But Del Zotto played. It's not like Del Zotto didn't get over. He was playing 24 minutes a game in Philly a couple of years ago before he started becoming a healthy scratch. But I would say on their current roster, I do think, Leipzig, given the right opportunity, what kind of player could he be? I always come back to Goldobin. I think Goldobin is the great example. Goldobin is the guy, 12 goals in 61 games. When Berchi arrived here, he had 8 goals in 66 games. I think that Goldobin was better than you remember this past season. I think that, his defensive play and his effort in his own end and all of that needs work. But he's the type of guy to me that in the right situation, in the right deployment, he can have a really good offensive kind of breakout. And Berchi's not unlike those Vegas guys. Berchi was given up on by the Flames, came to Vancouver. Vancouver gave him opportunity, and he was shining. Shining right up until this week when Jim said he's on his way out if he doesn't shape up. So, and Granlund for a heartbeat looked like he could be that guy. He was really good with or at least not really good, but he was effective with the Sedins. You had him tabbed for some immense number of goals. How many was it?
Forget it. I don't know.
What was
I've
it?
had 8 months of sleepless nights. I don't sleep well.
Was it 24?
I don't eat anymore.
Did they have?
I have to live with that.
Besser only scored 29.
You were pissed off to start. Now I'm getting angry. Leave me alone. Just let it go.
24 goals, though.
Well, if you played the whole season with the Twins, we'll never know.
Right. That's a good defense.
I'm holding to that. We'll never know.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, for the next decade, I'm just picking Besser as the leading goal scorer. I'll put that out there now.